I'll tell you what, the radicals in this country need to wipe their tears and stop being crybabies. The election is over, and the First Amendment still does exist in this country. I am tired of hearing all of these crybabies, these radical crybabies. Not on the left, however, but on the right. That's right. I mean, how much damage are they actually doing? I'm not talking about apologizing for the destruction on the part of the anarchists. That does not represent the majority. What the media does, what the media traditionally has done, is report on those fringe elements of those protests and make it seem like that's the whole group. And this demonization of anyone that dissents against the Trump, anyone who's not humping the Trump, they're labeled a member of the radical left. This radical left, this group think idea, and there are people that subscribe to that. But I run a YouTube channel where I comment on things, and I see how people will throw out insults and comments towards the content creator without even knowing the politics of the content creator. I've also dealt with aspects of what's called the radical left when I lived in Portland, and how they can be short-sighted as well, real assumptuous. Being an independent thinker, I know what it's like for both the left and the right to assume that I'm their political enemy just because I'm thinking outside their group think, hive mind, way of looking at reality, their consensus reality. I'm outside that. I'm outside the box. I think my listeners deserve an outside the box, independent perspective. That's not going to, for years and years, tell you to think for yourself. And to claim that I'm thinking for myself and that this is independent news, only to literally promote the establishment. Some people are doing that. And that's what's deplorable in my opinion. To act like you're one thing and then behave another way years later. And for what reason? For what reason do some of these people compromise their morals and integrity? Is it getting the attention of Daddy Donald? Is that what it is? Maybe we can help bring Donald to power, and then we ourselves will be noticed and will have our place next to the throne. Seems like that's very much in our cellular memory as humans, and perhaps some would argue more some than others, that archetypal memory to serve the hierarchy. Tell you one thing, out of the individuals that have trolled on my channel, that have tried to throw a guilt trip. Well, if you didn't vote, why do I have this feeling that they're not a minority group, that they're not Hispanic, Black, Jew, Semitic? There does seem to be an aspect within white culture that wants to guilt trip everybody around them and say, well, if you didn't vote, yeah, what? Is there something wrong with abstaining from giving any of these masters consent? See, for me, my way of doing things is sharing information. I'm doing that now. It's not rioting in the streets. So each his own. But not all those that are dissenting are rioting in the streets. And we're living in a day and age where a whole group of people are being called the radical left, like this new thing, this new enemy of America, this new enemy of the president. It's a pretty big war to have. We've seen a war on terror. We've seen how that has ended up. We've seen a war on drugs. We've seen a war on poverty. We've seen where all these wars have ended up. Is there going to be a war on the so-called radical left? Ooh, the lawlessness. And that association between that, those that create chaos and those that don't want to support the Donald. Well, what about those that haven't been supporting any mainstream politician for many years to many decades, that have worked tirelessly? Nope, they're all considered the radical left. So you want to talk about crybabies. You want to talk about people that need to dry their tears. I'd say it's those individuals that can't handle the truth that there really are independent thinkers out there. They can't handle the truth that some of these people would actually go down and demonstrate, and they're not actually being paid by George Soros, because that's ridiculous. To claim a conspiracy theory that doesn't have water, that all of those Portland protesters, specifically, because that's what people do in the comment sections. Oh, those are Soros protesters. Those are all paid by Soros. Now, if there's a story where someone's documenting, oh, these buses have been trucked in, and it's a massive conspiracy, because nobody would ever dare question the Donald. I mean, that's just crazy, or anyone for that matter, or Obama, or Bush, or the Clintons. I mean, who would do that? Who would be consistently against these selections every 4 to 8 years? Only someone who's being true to themselves throughout each cycle of time. You can actually be true to yourself and true to others each decade, each year, year after year, saying no to corruption, saying yes to the truth. You know, a certain number of years, people be like, that's great. Wow, we really like what you're saying. And then the times change, and it's almost as if there's a spell. I'd say there's a spell. I'd say there's a spell afoot in those that think that Donald Trump has been sent by God. And there are some that are actually saying that. Let me, if you're on Facebook, go over to James Manning. He's a guy called Obama, a long-legged Mac Daddy. And he took a lot of heat from the black community for speaking against the Obama Messiah. Obama, long-legged Mac Daddy. And that was good, man. That guy brought a lot of good information, brought a lot of character. Here we have a black voice. He has a church in Harlem. What's not like about the guy? Yeah, he may seem a little religious. He goes off on the sodomites quite a bit, to the point where you're wondering, you know, where is this guy being genuine, and where is this hype? But the man has stayed true to himself with regards to not drinking the Obama Kool-Aid. Enter Donald Trump, and he's talking about people leaving his church. People saying, what happened to you? What happened to you, Pastor? What's wrong with you, Pastor? We thought we could trust you. We loved you, Pastor. And he's like, you know, I've been the same person the whole time. I'm not at one point he did. Get behind the Trump train, I guess, briefly. Now I know the truth behind why he, made his line in the stand, unlike other pastors that are supposedly men of God, like with Obama and like with Bush, that are endorsing this man, Donald Trump. I mean, what can you say when you're dealing with the worship of a man? This is not a good sign. Not a good sign for America, not a good sign for the world, where they run through these programs. They run through these programs. They run it with the left, and they run that into the ground. But not so far into the ground to where people aren't looking towards Obama for some sort of leadership in this time of this nation's crisis. Still not understanding the nature of Obama's role these last 8 years. People think Obama needs to create a crisis to stay in power, without realizing there is a natural handoff of power. We'll talk about these photographs now. There are these photographs of Obama and Trump in the White House, and Trump showing certain body language. It looks like a reverse prayer with his fingers pointing downward, pressed together, pointed downward. I think there's a lot to analyze with regards to Donald Trump and the types of hand gestures, especially what you see there at that meeting with Obama, with his hands pointing down. And so instead of conspiracy researchers, so-called ones, being true to themselves, instead of going, wow, Donald Trump is really, wow, he's really showing us a lot of these hand signs. Instead, they're like, wow, this man's showing fear. Obama must have scared him. Wow. Yeah, I know what that face means. They're looking at the face, and this face, according to this tabloid paper, and oh my God, studying the body language of Donald Trump. What does it mean? And they did the same thing with Barack Obama. And some of that was a little bit more truthful with Barack Obama. And there was a little bit more people were united in the alternative media with regards to Barack Obama. Some took it in more of a tabloid direction. Very much so. And I think the birther movement was very much a tabloid direction. Did Obama have sex and and do cocaine with his gay lover, Larry Sinclair? And the stuff just got weirder and weirder, to the point where there's a presentation by Freeman even. Love the guy to a degree. But it is suggesting that Obama is a clone. And there are other areas in which this goes. And there are already theories about Hillary being replaced and the Donald being replaced. And so there's, how do I say this? How do I make sense of this as we wind down? You have people that say, oh no, that's a conspiracy theory to say that Donald Trump is in with the establishment, but then they come up with other stuff. There's other stuff that's considered kookier. Oh, they've replaced the Donald, or they've replaced Hillary. That's not really Hillary. That's a clone. But Donald Trump was this rove maverick who's literally playing this role, the superhero, and it's being televised. And it's all working out in favor of the Donald. Oh, don't worry about those statements that he made that is frightened people to death of being deported because of their religion or other things, or being targeted because of something that they said about the Donald. No. Let's not look into that. Let's just keep. Wow, what a nice hairdo he has today. Oh, what kind of animal does he have on his head today? Wow. Ooh, look at her. Oh, it's time for another Donald Trump tweet. It's not even really Donald Trump behind that even. It's all part of the machine. In conclusion, this Donald Trump selection, which I called, is there. And this is being proven now. My warnings, my predictions, it's all coming to fruition. Manufactured civil unrest in the United States. You don't need George Soros to fund every group. You push forward Donald Trump as the establishment selection, and you put people in fear that would rather see the country go in a more harmonious way. They'd like to see the wars end. Donald Trump, are you actually going to end the wars? How much longer are we going to be waiting after January? It's going to be really interesting to see how his supporters apologize for Trump, even though he's appointing neocons to his cabinet at this moment. We look at the joke of a press secretary. He's becoming a laughing meme in and of itself. You know, I'm actually going to be very entertained as well as saddened, but also entertained by the ways that people apologize for the decisions of Donald Trump. And I'm going to be reporting on those things on this channel. I'm Alex Ansary signing off for November 15th, 2016.